They said he was just another role player, a common name, a rotation piece. A useful player, as analysts like to say when they don't want to bet too hard. When Derrick White arrived in Boston, no one expected much. It was a low-key trade, almost procedural, the kind that fills space between bigger headlines. But what no one saw coming was the silent revolution. What Derrick White is doing in Boston goes beyond numbers. It's more than points, assists, or advanced stats. It's about culture. It's about mindset. And most importantly, it's about the power of a player finding the right place, in the right system, under the right leadership. White has become the symbol of a new Celtics identity, a team that doesn't need superstars hogging the spotlight, that plays with collective intensity, where even the supporting cast can become stars, if they're ready, and he was. On offense, he's become a consistent threat. On defense, a wall with surgical timing. But the most impactful thing is how he plays. With confidence, with a freedom that feels calculated. And that didn't just happen. There's a name behind it: Joe Mazzulla. Many still underestimate Mazzulla, and to be fair, it made sense at first. He was thrown into the job during chaos, an interim trying to patch a scandal-sized hole. No time, no preseason, no credibility. But now, with time, support, and full command, what he's built is scary. And I'm not just talking about tactical schemes or improved offensive ratings. I'm talking about a philosophy. Mazzulla created an environment where players like Derrick White don't just survive, they thrive. He broke the rigid hierarchy and turned Boston into a team where stardom rotates, but identity stays solid. And why doesn't anyone talk about it? Maybe because we're still obsessed with the big names. Tatum, Brown, Porzingis. Those are the headline makers. But the real engine of this team is someone else. It's the guy diving for a loose ball in the second quarter, guarding full court. The one who never fades, even when not shining. White's impact is the kind you only notice when you really watch. He doesn't play for applause. He plays to win. In my opinion, we're witnessing one of the most impressive evolutions in recent NBA history. Derrick White didn't just transform, he became essential. And by embracing this new identity, the Celtics became a team that doesn't need to be perfect to be unstoppable. Joe Mazzulla, with his calm presence and quiet demeanor, might just be the most underrated coach in the league. And maybe that's by design. Maybe he wants you to doubt them. Which brings us to the ultimate question: is it too late to stop this team? Because when a talented roster starts playing for something bigger than themselves, for culture, for mutual trust, for a coach who believes in the overlooked, that's when championships start to get decided. And honestly, it might already be too late for those who thought this was just another strong team from the East. What's the true impact of Joe Mazzulla? How does a once-dismissed coach become the brain behind one of the quietest, yet most devastating poor turnarounds in NBA history? Joe Mazzulla might look calm on the sideline, barely blinking, even with the shot clock running out. But behind that stoic exterior is a strategist obsessed with detail, culture, and consistency. He didn't inherit just any team. He took over a talented but emotionally volatile roster, still reeling from past heartbreaks. And the twist? Mazzulla didn't try to be the hero. He empowered the players to become the heroes of their own story. According to Derrick White, one of the biggest beneficiaries of this philosophy, the coach's secret weapon is deceptively simple: trust. Even if you miss the last shot, Joe wants you to take the next one. It sounds basic, but in a league where fear of failure can freeze careers, it's revolutionary. The message is clear: miss with courage, make with freedom. And that kind of freedom turns good players into deadly weapons. The Celtics we see today aren't driven by miracle shots or a savior with the ball in crunch time. They're a sharp collective where everyone knows their role. And more importantly, they know they're allowed to fail and try again. That's where Mazzulla's impact goes beyond the playbook. He's not just drawing up sets, he's shaping character. He turned White into a silent assassin, unlocked Hauser, and even Tatum seems to play lighter, less burdened. The culture Mazzulla built breathes autonomy, rare for a team with title, ambitions. And that translates into a group that plays loose, adapts, and responds with maturity even when Plan A fails. But here's the psychological curveball. Can this philosophy survive playoff pressure, where mistakes hurt more and the margin for error shrinks? The biggest criticism of Mazzulla is still his inexperience in clutch moments. And while he's grown and definitely learned from the stumbles of 2023, the question remains: when the heat is on, can the system hold up, or will it collapse? Without that vocal, visceral leadership demanding more. My take? Mazzulla has already proven he's far more than a stopgap coach. He's a culture architect. His impact isn't just wins, it's how he raised the team's psychological ceiling. Whether that will be enough in a 7-game war against a hardened opponent is still a mystery. But one thing's clear: with Joe at the helm, the Celtics play without fear. And that alone makes them a threat to anyone. Is the Celtics really ready for another finals run? The question seems simple, but it's loaded with years of frustration, sky-high expectations, and the legacy of a franchise that demands greatness. The Boston Celtics aren't just another team trying to go far. They're one of the most scrutinized, pressure-heavy squads in the NBA. So what happens when every game feels like a finals Game 7 for your opponents? When your logo becomes a target? Derrick White put it best: beating the Celtics is the Super Bowl for a lot of teams. Every round becomes a war. Every possession, a test of focus. Everyone wants to slay the giant. And staying hungry when you are the feast? That's not easy. Next up is the Orlando Magic, a team that mirrors what the Celtics once were: young, hungry, fearless, and with nothing to lose. They run harder, make more mistakes, but they also take more risks. And that kind of us against the world energy, it can wreak havoc. The Magic aren't just a tactical threat, they're emotional dynamite. They'll play loose, provoke, push the Celtics out of their comfort zone. They're perfect for testing Boston's mental discipline. Just remember Atlanta in 2023, or the Game 7 collapse against the Heat. Intensity was never the issue. Sometimes Boston was. But here's the difference: this isn't the same team anymore. Today's Celtics have something they lacked before: identity. And that's rarer than you think, in a league full of flashy super teams constantly reinventing themselves. Joe Mazzulla, with time and vision, molded a constellation of stars into a cohesive unit, not just in game plan, but in mindset, with White becoming the team's emotional barometer, the guy who doesn't need the spotlight but sets the tone, and with Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, and Holiday embracing their roles. Boston seems to have found something that doesn't show up in the box score: balance. Mazzulla doesn't want one player to win. He wants all of them to win together. And that makes all the difference. But identity alone doesn't win rings. Which brings us to the most dangerous doubt of all. Is Boston's biggest enemy still Boston? They have the talent. They have the depth. But do they have the poise? The humility to adapt mid-series? Patience to win in the margins? Recent history suggests that ego, or lack of emotional control, has cost them. Moments of carelessness, rushed decisions, or simply the arrogance of thinking they could flip the switch at will. In the playoffs, those mistakes are fatal. My opinion, the Celtics are ready, but only if they understand that being the best on paper doesn't mean being unbeatable in reality. This is the time to play like a team that's been burned before, like a group that has lost enough to finally value every win. Because if this team sticks to its identity, controls its impulses, and plays with the hunger of an underdog, then, yeah, they're unstoppable. But if they slip, if they think the jersey wins games by itself, if they allow arrogance for even one quarter, Magic, or any underdog, turn a promising season into another disappointment. And for a franchise dreaming of that 18th banner, that weight might be too much to ignore. The story of Derrick White teaches us something simple: underestimating the invisible can be fatal. He came in quietly, like he didn't want to bother anyone, to a team already crowded with stars and sky-high expectations. He was supposed to be a tactical fit, nothing more. But what we saw was something far bigger. White became a symbol. Not the symbol of a lone superstar, but of a new era. The Celtics no longer rely on one guy hitting a buzzer beater. They're a system, precise, collective, hard to decode, led by someone many still question: Joe Mazzulla. That's exactly what makes them dangerous, because while the spotlight chases the usual names, Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, The Celtics are winning with distributed leadership, with players who know what to do even when the ball's not in their hands. With a coach who, instead of inflating egos, doubled down on repetition, trust, and the belief that anyone could be the guy. That kind of mindset changes everything. It's the kind of thing that turns a good team into a champion. White embodies this. A guy who does the dirty work, who defends like it's Game 7 every night, who shoots with conviction and never asks for attention. He became the mirror of a team that understood being the guy isn't about status. It's about consistency. So now we ask, is that enough to finally raise banner 18? My take. For the first time in years, the Celtics have all the right pieces. Not just technically, but mentally. They don't walk into games waiting for someone to save them. They walk in knowing everyone has to click from the bench to the starting five. That doesn't mean there are no risks. We still have to see how they respond to a Game 6 on the road with a hostile crowd and cold shooting. But if any team is built for that, it's this one, because they've fallen, they've tasted bitter losses, and they've learned. Still, let's be honest, maybe something's still missing. That emotional spark, that vocal leader in the chaos, that fire starter in the locker room who yells when things fall apart. As great as Mazzulla's tactics are, sometimes playoff basketball demands more than X's and O's. It demands heart, rage, the will to crush whoever's in front. If the Celtics can find that switch, then no one's stopping them. So let me ask you, who really drives this Celtics team in 2024? Is it White with his quiet dominance, Mazzulla with his cerebral system, Tatum with his versatile silence? Or is it the entire machine, turning like clockwork? Drop your thoughts in the comments and get ready, because next video, we're diving into what might be the most strategic and underrated rivalry in the NBA right now. Celtics versus Bucks, and how that battle could define not just these playoffs, but the entire future of the Eastern Conference.